Okay, so this was TNA's first monthly open fight night. And right out of the gate, you could tell this was going to be a really... Oh, for God's sake, what the hell is it this time? Really? So that whole elaborate, self-indulgent entrance was just to show that you shaved your head? Yeah. You know, that's funny. Wasn't there a rumor a while back that you actually left the fourth dimension because they told you to cut your hair and you didn't want to? No. Okay, apparently not. Going into this episode, I wasn't sure what to expect even after reading the spoilers, mostly because the rules of Open Fight Night hadn't really been explained very well the previous week. Thankfully, they addressed this right off the bat. The first thing they did was have Hogan explain how this would all work, more clearly this time. The way it goes is, anyone who's challenged to a match has to accept, including the current champions, but only one championship will be defended on Open Fight Night. 2 if you count the TV title, which will be defended every week now. And Hogan decides which champion that will be. Okay, now I understand. Thank you. To start things off, I was pleased with the way TNA tried to make Open Fight Night seem different than the usual Impact. It had different graphics, it had its own opening video package, so they were at least trying to make it seem like this was a theme show that was out of the ordinary. They didn't do as much as WWE when they do Raw Roulette, but it was something. The show began, strangely enough, with a wrestling match. Been a long time since that happened. Devon comes out, and apparently he gets to pick who he defends the TV title against because he's there to call out Bully Ray. He says Bully Ray is a guy that everyone backstage wants to see get his ass kicked, and so Devon has decided to give him a TV title shot. I know, just roll with it. So Bully Ray comes out, and despite the fact that Devon is handing him a title shot on a silver platter without him having to do a damn thing to earn one, Bully Ray doesn't even want it and tries to walk away. Just roll with it. So Devon drags him back to the ring, they have the match, Devon wins. Aside from the psychology here being completely out of whack, the segment was okay. I mean, the match was nothing remarkable, but it was the TV champion actually on TV, defending his title like a man, treating it seriously, and damn it, that's a hell of a step up from the way that championship used to be booked. If they can keep this up for a while, they might actually make that title relevant finally. My only real issue here is that this didn't really seem to have any point to it beyond that. It just felt like a random match. If it was the start of a new storyline, then that's one thing, but it would have been nice to have Austin Aries involved here somehow. I mean, him just cutting a promo afterward didn't feel like an effective way to use him here. Then came an angle I had a lot of mixed feelings on. Jeremy Borash comes out, and under the rules of Open Fight Night, he challenges Eric Bischoff to a match. Bully Ray low blows JB, and Bischoff pins him, which would lead to what happened later on, and this was just too WWE for my taste. I don't care to see non-wrestlers versus other non-wrestlers. I don't think the issues between them warranted this. I mean, did anyone really care? I mean, yeah, Bischoff badmouthed JB on Facebook and in interviews. So what? That means you have to make a feud out of it? Granted, JB is a more likable babyface foil for Bischoff than Garrett ever was, but you're eating up a lot of TV time here.
This whole show is ridiculous!
Speaking of wasting time, Mexican America came out.
Ha-ha!
They're pissed off about not being in the tag title picture, even though they haven't won a match in months. Anarchia issues a challenge, which is answered by Kurt Angle, who apparently turned face off camera, and you can guess the rest. Why are Mexican America still on my television? Yes, I know they're just jobbers now, but I don't care. Anarchia is fucking awful. The fact that he's even still employed by this company is ridiculous. Thankfully, they kept this segment brief. They were out there just long enough to show that Kurt Angle is a babyface now, and I have no idea how or why or when that happened, but he completely steamrolled Anarchia, beat him in under a minute, embarrassed him like the chump that he is, so thank you, Kurt Angle. The second major angle of Open Fight Night was the title match. Now, Hogan decides that the tag team titles will be the ones defended tonight. Mexican America were not considered potential contenders, thank Christ. But for some ungodly reason, Eric Young and ODB were.
Oh my God, he's gonna puke! He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke!
If anything, this angle proved just how thin the tag team roster still is. It was the Machine Guns, Kaz and Daniels, Eric Young and ODB, and Jeff Hardy and Ken Anderson. Now, where the hell did that pairing come from? I mean, yeah, they were the enigmatic assholes at one point, but that was like 2 years ago, and they haven't tagged together since then, so Hogan has to choose which one of these teams gets the title shot, and had this all been resolved in that segment, it would have been fine. But they came back to this throughout the night, spending multiple segments just hashing out which team was going to get this spot. And this just felt like a big waste of time because the question of which team Hogan was going to pick wasn't interesting enough to keep my interest for that long. These segments just felt like a bunch of filler. Let's be honest, we all knew who he was going to pick. It would have been better if you just had him choose them immediately and then devoted the rest of that time to building up this match between Hardy Anderson and the tag team champs. And considering this was the main event match, and considering who was in it, it really could have used more effective hype than, which team am I gonna pick, brother? Really ineffective use of time in my opinion. Although, Hogan getting irritated by Eric Young and ODB's shtick, trying to get them to be serious for a change and then kicking them out when they wouldn't listen to him, was a detail that was not lost on me, and I appreciated it. Then came the gut check angle. Now this is where they give an unsigned indie wrestler a match on the show and a chance to earn a contract, and they brought out Alex Silva from OVW. And this, more than anything else on this episode, depended on the execution to make it work, because you're trying to get the fans to like a guy most of them have never seen before, and he's gonna sink or swim based on how much he can get over in one segment. And that's tough. So I was looking forward to this, but I was anxious at the same time because I really wanted this to go well. I think they did a good job of introducing Silva beforehand. They gave him that video package where we learn who he is and how he got there and a little bit of his history in the business. And he came off as very sympathetic with that story about his dad, and that was well done. Then Al Snow talked him up for a minute, and that was well done. So by the time this thing started, they'd cover their bases in showing the audience that this guy isn't just some loser off the street. He's been around the block, he's accomplished some things, and he's deserving of an opportunity. and up until that point, it was great. Then we found out that his opponent was Robbie E. And that's when this whole thing went pear-shaped. Now, the purpose of this angle was to give Silva the opportunity to get himself over with the fans, right? Well, that becomes very difficult when the opponent you stick him with is one of the most worthless, untalented, ineffective characters on the roster. A guy who's not over at all, who doesn't seem to have good matches with anyone, and then you task Silva with somehow pulling a good performance out of this idiot. What's worse is that with the way this match was booked, Silva didn't even get to do very much. He wasn't given the opportunity to do anything really impressive, and a lot of the time he was just bumping around selling for Robbie, whose offense is sleep-inducing. And the match only got like 2 minutes. Put all that together and it adds up to Alex Silva getting the jobber treatment from a no-talent jackass who's a jobber himself masquerading as a mid-carder that nobody takes seriously. And Silva, who I know can do better than this, really didn't get a fair chance to display his skills or make a case for himself at all. I felt really bad for him. I mean, how the hell was he supposed to show TNA why he should be signed based on that? When you give a guy 2 minutes with Robbie fucking E, you're not going to get anything impressive, and you damn well know it.
You people are fools!
Now, had that been the end of it, I would have felt like TNA just threw this poor guy under the bus. But we did see him again later when he was talking to Al Snow, and then Bobby Roode walked in and cheap-shotted him. And I thought it was odd that they added that. So I'm guessing this was either to get the fans to rally behind him a little bit more, or maybe it was an angle to set up a storyline for the future. I don't know. It's hard to judge because we really don't know the specifics of this right now. We don't know if Silva has already been signed and this is just a way of introducing him, or if it really was just an on-air tryout match. Unfortunately, if it was the latter, I gotta give this segment a thumbs down. Not because of anything Silva did, but because this whole thing could have been executed so much more effectively than it was. Now, something I thought was effective, man, my segues are awesome this week, was the knockout segment. Now, Brooke Tessmacher comes out and challenges Gail. She says she wants to prove that she's a threat to the Knockouts title, that her pinning Gail Kim last week wasn't a fluke, and Gail shouldn't be looking past her. Gail comes out, they have a match, Gail underestimates her, and Brooke gets the upset win, presumably setting up a title match at Sacrifice. And I really liked this, largely because the writers finally came up with a fresh opponent for Gail. And Brooke is the only babyface knockout, and one of the only knockouts, period, that Gail has never really feuded with. So we're getting something we haven't seen before for a change. They had a pretty fair match, too, and I bet with more time they could do even better. And Brooke has improved enough as a wrestler by now that you could do an angle like this and pull it off. A year ago, or even 6 months ago, that wouldn't have worked. But Brooke has obviously been busting her ass to improve, and she really has gotten a lot better. And now I can look at her, and I can believe that this is a person who could conceivably sneak one by Gail if she's not careful. Now, I'm not saying Brooke Tessmacher is necessarily ready to be the Knockout Singles Champion just yet, but she's not the worst option they could go with anymore. I mean, fuck it, she's a better worker than Velvet and Madison are at this point, which makes her the most compelling opponent Gail has had since before Victory Road. And the fact that she's one of the only knockouts left that have never been the singles champion, have never been in the title picture, makes this a lot more interesting than it would have been if they just thrown Tara or Angelina or ODB in there for the umpteenth time. So I'm on board with this. The main event match of the show, not the main event segment, mind you, but the main event match, was the tag team title match that Hogan had spent all night trying to pick challengers for. Now, ultimately, after acknowledging in front of the whole world that Kaz and Daniels did indeed have the best claim to a tag team title shot, he then gives that shot to his boys Hardy and Anderson instead. Yay, cronyism for the win! He wants to see if they can work together, because for reasons that only make sense in the mind of Hulk Hogan, the question of whether Jeff Hardy and Ken Anderson can work together or not is suddenly a huge pressing issue that must be resolved, despite the fact that it sprung up completely out of nowhere for no reason.
What the fuck?
No explanation of any kind is offered for why it's of such vital importance that the wrestling world finds out if these guys, who only tagged for a brief period 2 years ago, are able to work together or not. And I don't think we're going to get one either. More than anything else, this felt like Hogan putting his boys in a title match just because he can, much like he did with Bob Van Dam last week. Van Dam, who came off like an egotistical douchebag in that video package, by the way. Does anyone else find it funny that not only are the writers not even trying to hide the fact that Hogan is obviously completely biased towards Van Dam, Hardy, and Anderson, but they're actually playing it up? I just find that kind of ironic. Not surprising, but ironic. Anyway, the tag title match is pretty good. The right team went over, but it felt too short. I really wish they'd given this another 5 minutes. As it is, it really didn't have enough time devoted to it to put over the Joe Daddy. To put over Joe and Magnus beating these guys as the big deal that it should have been. Now, I was thrilled that they won, don't get me wrong, but it seemed like that victory got swept under the rug in a big hurry. Although, I did love the fact that Hardy and Anderson were essentially enhancement talent for the tag champs, while Kaz and Daniels turned out to be the real opponents they need to look out for. That was very refreshing. But the real main event segment of the night was, predictably, the Eric Bischoff goodbye party.
Oh, what a bunch of bull.
First of all, I was very disappointed that they were no longer bleeping out Bischoff's name like an F-bomb. That cracked me up last week, but they just decided to stop doing it for some reason. Second of all, holy Christ, this thing went on forever. Flair and Immortal start talking about Bischoff and how great he is, and they're just going on and on and on and on, and finally someone puts a stop to this. Unfortunately, that someone was Garrett. Did you notice how Garrett was flanked on all sides by popular babyfaces? Have you noticed that they've been doing that with him an awful lot lately? They even threw Sabin and Shelley in there, even though they've had nothing to do with Garrett up until this point. This is because they're trying to ward off the negative fan reaction to this guy, and they know that as long as the crowd is chanting Motor City, or Austin Aries, or RVD, they won't be pissing all over Garrett. Believe me, TNA know the fans don't like this guy. They've known since the UK tour, when Hogan asked the crowd in the Wembley Arena to cheer for Garrett, and they responded by booing him out of the building. TNA know this guy is a scrub. The problem is the executive producer thinks otherwise, so they're fucked. They have to push him. And with his dad now off TV, that's only going to get more complicated. Because without his dad to get heat from and to play off of, Garrett is going to have to get over on his own merits. But the issue with that is he brings nothing to the table. Zero charisma, mic skills are lousy, wrestling skills rudimentary at best. He's gonna sink like the Titanic. But unless his daddy decides to leave the company, they're most likely gonna continue pushing him anyway. Probably the best we can hope for is that he'll be put in an undercard feud where he won't get that much screen time. So after this segment went on for what felt like 10 years, the show ends with Garrett and JB throwing Bischoff into a porta potty and tipping it over. Despite the truly agonizing lengths they went to get Garrett over here, the image of Eric Bischoff getting kicked off TNA TV covered in human shit is a memory that I will keep right here until the day I die. And I am happy JB got to do that because Bischoff has treated him with no respect at all. But does that really justify them spending so much time on this? No, it doesn't. Like with a lot of things TNA does, Open Fight Night is a good idea on paper, but the execution is what prevents it from working as well as it should. In the future, don't spend so much time deliberating who gets title matches. Work more storylines in so challenges like Anarchia vs. Kurt Angle don't seem so random, and use the gut check to highlight these new guys more instead of just making them come off like 2-minute jobbers. I will say that despite the problems I had with it, I did enjoy this show. Open Fight Night is a good concept, they just need to refine it. I mean, sure, I had some issues with this one, but hell, Samoa Joe and Magnus went over Ken Anderson and Jeff Hardy in the main event, and that was pretty awesome. So even though this Open Fight Night wasn't perfect by any stretch, I am looking forward to the next one. Hopefully they'll have the kinks worked out by then. That's all for now. See you next week.